During this section, we will create a triangulated model from the DAT file created in the previous steps. So now we have the data extracted from the DGN into a DAT file, and now we can build the TIN file from that. We're going to be focused on page 5 in the training guide under the Generating a Triangulated Model, and we'll carry through to the top of page 7 during this video. I'm going to go ahead and work with the same DGN file that I had earlier, aerial underbar survey 3d.dgn. That's our existing survey that we got from the aerial photogrammetry. You can see we've got a DAT file already created in this step. So I'm going to launch back into Power Civil and access my DTM tools. Located in the main tool frame called DTM Tools, or from Civil Digital Train Modeling. That'll bring up my tool palette, and I've already extracted the graphics into the DAT file as I said earlier. Now I'm going to build triangles. So I click the Build Triangles icon, which brings up the appropriate dialog, where I can select my data file, existing ground .dat, and I can create a TIN file. I'll name it the same, existing underbar ground, and the TIN extension will be automatically put on the file. At this point, I just need to decide what I want to do with triangles along the exterior boundary of my surface. So for example, out here, do I want triangles located out in this area here? If I don't, then I need to set the dissolve option to something other than none. Sliver would get rid of long, skinny triangles, probably not these. Side is where I can actually determine a length of triangle to not be longer than a particular value. So for example, if I say 20, then the side of a triangle along the edge of my surface will not be greater than 20 units, in this case meters. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to 20 and click the Process button. This will take the DAT file and build a TIN, or triangular regular network, from that. If I follow along the bottom of my Power Civil window, I can see Build Triangles Completed. So now I have the TIN file. In order to view the TIN file, we need to use a tool called Load DTM Features. I can access that from the DTM tool frame. And it brings up a dialog titled Load DTM Features. Here is where I could load up graphically or display graphically a DAT file or a TIN file. I just changed the type from data to TIN, and I can go select my TIN file and review the triangles. So I'm going to set it to Load TIN, and it has the existing underbar ground.tin. If that wasn't there, I could use the select file, and I could go and grab the appropriate file. I'm going to load this for the extent of the surface, but we also could load it for a fence or view. And I'm going to set my display option to display only. So these won't be permanently drawn in the file. Anything that I draw, triangles, contours, won't be permanently in the file. I'm also going to set a graphic group, so if I do permanently draw them in the file later, I can easily delete them. Now notice the triangles are set to off. The default value would be off, when you open up the software for the first time, I can come in here and double click, and that would turn the item on, which means when I hit the load button, it will load that graphically. Notice the color that it used to load that was the same color listed here in the sample graphic. I could change that simply by double clicking on that and setting it to appropriate level, weight, and color of my choosing. So for example, I'll change it to 3, style 0, and weight of 0, as shown in step 5 in our guide. That changes it here, and I just refresh or update my view, hit load again, and it'll see it in red. Now I'm going to move on to the contours. I'm going to highlight the contours option. Notice that it's off. I can turn it on. I've got icons again on the side to turn things on and off as well. I'll click item on. It turns the contours item on, but it doesn't turn the lines themselves on. I'll individually go to those in a minute. The main contours item in the list is where I set up my interval. For example, I would want an interval of 2 and 10. So I set up 2 foot on the intermediate contours, 10 foot on the major. I can set a smoothing factor. I can set up a range of contours to draw. If I don't know my range, I can hit the read button, and it will read in the lowest and highest values from my surface, my 10 file, and populate the dialog for me. On the lines themselves, I can go through each item in the list and make the appropriate change for how I want to draw contours. I can turn that item on. I can set up the graphic. In this case, I'll change it to a color of 2. I'll thicken up the weight a little bit to 2 and click OK. The labels, if I want to label the major lines, I'll go ahead and turn the item on, double click on the sample graphic. I'll set up a color again of 2. I'll set up a text height and text width of 5. I can change the font if I want. I'll leave it at standard. And I can set up decimal places, which I'll leave at 0. Click OK. And then I need to set up the distance between labels. I'll leave it at 100. And basically what it'll do is place a label every 100 meters, in this case, along a contour line. Go to the minor lines. I'll turn those on and set their color and weight and style. I could also label the minor lines, but I won't do that at this point. So I refresh, hit the load, it'll draw the triangles, then it'll draw the contours. As I zoom around, I can check on things. So I can come over and hit load. As I zoom back out, the contours go away. Zoom back in, hit load, and it'll draw them again. And again, if display only was not turned on, or toggled on as it is in my dialog, then these graphics would be permanently part of the file.